In the high-octane world of global manufacturing, efficiency is king, but the cost of a single mechanical heartbeat skipping can be catastrophic.
Contamination is driving a surge of recall.
Every product in this video passed inspection until it didn't. For the modern consumer, the supermarket is a hall of mirrors. We are told that we live in the safest era of human history, where food standards are governed by satellite tracking and molecular testing. Yet beneath this veneer of absolute control lies a volatile reality.
Shelves stripped of leafy greens in one of the biggest food recalls in years. Millions of dollars worth of pre-mixed salads, stir-fries and ready-made meals binned.
The recall isn't just a logistical error, it's a high-stakes admission of failure in the MAGNATES system of mass production. It is the moment the machine breaks and the biological or mechanical reality of the factory floor spills into the sanctuary of the family kitchen. Australia's regulatory landscape is among the most rigorous on earth, but even the tightest net has holes. As we move into early 2026, a series of high-profile recalls has exposed the vulnerabilities of the industry.
The Food and Drug Administration recalled more food last year than it had in 5 years. That includes all kinds of groceries like vegetables and ice cream.
From the world's largest food conglomerates to the independent craft giants.
Last year, more than 1,000 people got sick through recalled food products.
When you reach for that tin of infant formula or that Friday night keg of ale, you are trusting a chain of custody that spans continents. And sometimes that chain snaps.
In 2012, it closed the biggest peanut butter plant in the US, Sunland Inc.
This is the forensic breakdown of the systemic breakdowns. But before we move ahead, let me tell you about FSANZ. Overseeing this fragile system is Food Standards Australia New Zealand, FSANZ, the federal authority responsible for setting food safety standards, approving ingredients, and issuing recalls when things go wrong.
Oh, apologies. Yes, thank you very much.
It's available on your website, which concludes the best name to give this novel food is cell cultured, which makes it sound better than lab grown or frankenfoods.
On paper, FSANZ is meant to be the last line of defence between consumers and contamination. In reality, its own investigations have delivered some of the most alarming revelations. Recent FSANZ findings have uncovered undeclared allergens in infant products, illegal chemical residues in imported foods, microbial contamination above legal limits, and labelling that outright misrepresented what Australians were consuming. In several cases, products stayed on shelves for weeks or months before action was taken. The shock isn't that unsafe products exist. It's that they passed inspections, crossed borders, and reached Australian homes before the alarms went off. This is recent high-profile recalls in Australia exposed.
Several prepared foods sold at Walmart, Kroger, and Trader Joe's are linked to a listeria outbreak. 4 people have died.
1. The toxin in the nursery, Nestlé alpha-amino. On January 7th, 2026, the global magnate of nutrition, Nestlé, faced the ultimate nightmare, a potential toxin in infant formula. The recall of alpha-amino infant formula, 0 to 12 months, sent a chill through every pharmacy and hospital in the country.
This consumer alert to warn you about tonight, a major baby formula recall after an infant has died and others have gotten sick.
Swiss food giant Nestlé has issued a recall of some of its baby formula products in 25 countries after detecting a potential contamination risk.
This wasn't just a mislabeled allergen, this was the potential presence of cerulide. Cerulide is a preformed toxin produced by the microorganism Bacillus cereus. Unlike many bacteria that can be killed by heat, cerulide is a thermal warrior. It is extremely heat resistant. Once it's in the product, you can't boil it away. The exposure here is a terrifying look at supply chain vulnerability. Nestlé traced the issue back to a single ingredient from a third-party supplier. In the world of mass-market nutrition, even a giant like Nestlé is only as safe as its weakest link. While the concentrations detected were reported to be low, the presence of any toxin in a product designed for the most vulnerable members of society, infants with milk allergies, is an absolute failure of the zero-risk promise.
The mother's trust a parent's faith shaken the very first feed. The food you believe will nurture your baby, could it actually make your child sick?
It exposes the dark truth that in the industrial food machine, the journey from ingredient to infant is a minefield of potential biological contamination. If you want to see more exposures like this before they disappear from headlines, subscribe to Jake States. 2. The fermentation bomb, Loophole Brewing Company. Beer is supposed to be a celebration of craft, but on January 8, 2026, Loophole Brewing Company had to issue a warning that sounded more like a bomb squad advisory. Their 5-litre Pacific Ale party kegs were undergoing secondary fermentation. +1. To the uninitiated, secondary fermentation sounds like a natural brewing process. In reality, in a sealed, pressurized keg, it is a recipe for disaster. If the yeast continues to consume residual sugars after the product has been packaged, it produces excess CO2 and alcohol. The pressure inside these 5-litre metal containers can reach critical levels, turning a party keg into a potential shrapnel-spewing projectile. This recall exposes the instability of the independent craft explosion. As smaller breweries scale up to supply giants like Costco, the precision of their pasteurization and stabilization processes must be flawless. 1 degree of temperature deviation or one stray yeast cell can turn a refreshing ale into a dangerous liability. It is the high-stakes reality of the beverage business. If you can't control the biology, the physics will eventually take over. 3. The metal shards in the pocket, McCain Foods. As we discussed in the frozen food deep dive, McCain Foods is a titan of the freezer. But on December 12, 2025, that reputation took a hit when they recalled their cheese and bacon pizza pockets due to the presence of plastic and metal foreign matter.
McCain Foods is now expanding a major recall because of potential listeria and salmonella contamination. Corn and other vegetables supplied from the McCain Foods could have been tainted with bacteria.
Check your freezer. More than 700,000 pounds of Hot Pockets are under recall.
This is the mechanical failure exposure. In a facility that produces tens of thousands of units per hour, the machinery is under immense stress. A single bolt loosening, a plastic guide rail shearing off, or a sieve failing can introduce hazardous materials into the product. The scary part, these pizza pockets were distributed nationally across Coles, Woolworths, and IGA. It reveals the blind spots of detection. Despite the use of industrial metal detectors and X-ray machines on production lines, materials can still slip through if they fall below a certain density or size threshold. For the consumer, it's a reminder that convenience often comes from a factory where the line between food and industrial output is dangerously thin. 4. The poison in the pastry, Sapori soft amaretti. In December 2025, a boutique import became a biological hazard. Sapori soft amaretti biscuits were recalled because they contained higher than usual levels of hydrocyanic acid, more commonly known as cyanide. +1.
Consumer alert now to tell you about just as you're getting ready for breakfast. One brand of frozen biscuits may make you sick. The T. Marzetti company is voluntarily recalling its biscuits due to a possible listeria contamination.
This exposure hits at the heart of the natural trap. Hydrocyanic acid occurs naturally in bitter almonds, a key ingredient in traditional amaretti. However, there are strict limits on how much of this biotoxin can be present in food. If the sourcing of the almonds is inconsistent or the processing fails to neutralize the acid, the result is a biscuit that is literally toxic. This recall exposes the risks of international sourcing and boutique imports. While we crave authentic European flavors, the regulatory oversight in distant processing plants can vary wildly. It's a classic MAGNATES media narrative, a luxury product, an ancient recipe, and a hidden chemical killer waiting in the pantry. And the final recall exposes a failure so basic it shouldn't exist in 2026. 5. The rust in the can, Metcash Community Company. On January 8, 2026, Metcash, the powerhouse behind IGA, exposed a fundamental failure in the most basic of food technologies, the tin can. Their community co-diced beetroot was recalled due to a packaging fault that allowed rust to form inside the can. This is an exposure of packaging integrity. The tin can has been the gold standard of food preservation for over a century, but it relies on a thin, protective lining that separates the acidic food from the metal. If that lining is compromised during the manufacturing of the can, or if the magnate seeks to cut costs by using thinner, lower quality materials, the result is oxidation. Rust isn't just unappealing. It can introduce metallic contaminants and compromise the vacuum seal, leading to botulism or other microbial growth. It reminds us that even staple foods are subject to the pressures of a cutthroat supply chain, where every fraction of a cent saved on packaging increases the risk of a systemic failure. 6. The date palm saboteur, Tom and Luke Snackables. Tom and Luke, a brand built on the clean eating and health-conscious movement, faced a major recall in December 2025 after hard plastic was found in their hazelnut and raspberry snackables. The investigation revealed a fascinating and frustrating truth. The plastic didn't come from the factory machinery, but from the imported dates used as a base for the snacks. This exposes the invisible ingredient risk. When a company like Smart Foods Limited imports tons of dried fruit, they are at the mercy of the upstream processors. If a plastic crate or a harvesting tool breaks in a date orchard in the Middle East or North Africa, those fragments can travel halfway around the world, hidden inside the fruit, only to be discovered by a consumer in Sydney. It's a stark reminder that in a globalized food system, your healthy snack is only as clean as the most distant point of its origin. 7. The allergen oversight, tasty, juicy, cheesy hot dogs. Finally, we look at the PBLNT-PDLT recall of their Filipino-style hot dogs due to an undeclared allergen, milk. While it might sound less dramatic than cyanide or metal shards, undeclared allergens are the leading cause of food-related deaths and hospitalizations in Australia. This exposure is about labelling negligence. In a facility that handles multiple products, cross-contact is a constant threat. If a magnate doesn't strictly segregate production lines or fails to update a label when a recipe changes, perhaps substituting a cheaper milk-based binder, the result can be fatal for an allergic consumer. This recall, affecting 6 states and territories, highlights the complexity of modern meat processing. A hot dog isn't just meat, it's a chemical emulsion of proteins, fats, and binders. When the label fails, the product becomes a hidden weapon. The anatomy of a recall, the corporate cost. When a company like Nestlé or McCain issues a recall, the financial damage is calculated in the tens of millions. There is the cost of the physical reverse logistics, pulling product off shelves in every corner of the country, and the cost of destruction. But the true cost is the erosion of the brand premium. The magnates spend billions on advertising to convince you that their logo equals safety. A recall is a glitch in that matrix. It forces the consumer to realize that the person in the white lab coat in the commercial doesn't actually exist on every factory floor. In 2026, we are seeing an upward trend in recalls, not necessarily because our food is getting worse, but because our testing is getting better. We are now able to detect toxins and foreign matter that would have gone unnoticed 20 years ago. The future of the safe plate. The exposure of these 7 recalls reveals a fundamental truth about the 21st century food system. Complexity is the enemy of safety. The more steps in the chain, the more ingredients in the mix, and the more countries involved in the sourcing, the higher the probability of a black swan event. As a consumer, the magnates media takeaway is clear. The middle is the danger zone. The most processed, multi-ingredient, convenience foods carry the highest risk of mechanical and chemical failure. Trust, but verify. In 2026, subscribing to recall alerts isn't paranoia. It's a necessary part of modern navigation. The power of the local. The shorter the supply chain, the fewer opportunities there are for a piece of plastic from a distant orchard or a biotoxin from an overseas almond grove to enter your body. The machine will keep running. The magnates will keep producing. And the freezers will stay full. But the next time you hear that hiss of a party keg or open a box of pizza pockets, remember that you are the final auditor in a multi-billion-dollar system that for all its brilliance, is still prone to the very human and very mechanical error of the glitch. This wasn't an exception, it was a glimpse, and there's more coming. Subscribe to Jake States.